right, so let's talk about with the rising popularity of streaming services like Netflix, Iflix, and Cashplay Plus. What does this mean for XL Home? What is the uptake?
So one of the interesting things about this market is, as I mentioned, a very young population. So over 50% of the population is below the age of 30. What that means is consumer behavior is different. Now this population, this younger generation, does not consume content like the likes of you and I, or rather likes of I did, right? When I was growing up. So this young population chooses to consume content at a time of their choice, through a medium of their choice. They do not want to be bound by the programming timelines that come through a typical pay TV operator. What that means is fewer of this population, of this generation, is watching the traditional TV as we know it, right? And this is where XL's offering differentiates itself, because we are not a traditional pay TV provider. What we are offering is content on a set-top box through apps such as Netflix, Iflix, and a host of other partners. So what we are doing is we are setting up partnerships with all these content providers for them to come and host their apps on our box, and then the consumer can subscribe to the content that they have to pay for, or watch it for free, whatever content is available free. So this is the implication for content consumption in this market.
Would you say that XL Home is very suitable for millennial market?
That is one of our target demographics. In fact, that is the main target demographic we are going after. And hence, we are not telling the consumer that she can watch what we ask her to watch at a time that we tell her to watch. No. What we are saying is, here is a high quality super fast broadband. Here's a whole plethora of different content. You can choose what you want to watch. So we are not forcing around 500 channels down anyone's throat. We are saying we have all this excellent content through our content partners. You decide what you want to watch and when you want to watch.
Okay, let's talk about the global challenges for the industry. We do know that 2019 is a year full of global challenges, and in some ways it's affecting the Indonesian economy. What are the global challenges for XL Home?
Let's talk about the global challenges for the industry, right? So we are talking about the telecom sector, which is one of the most capex intensive sectors in the world, with unfortunately at times one of the lowest returns in capital. In that context, how do you balance the requirement for huge amounts of investment into building networks with the ability of operators to make return? By that what I mean is, if you look at the valuations of digital companies nowadays, right, the likes of Facebook and Apple or even Instagram, so on and so forth, these are companies that haven't necessarily built the infrastructure, right? They ride on the infrastructure that we have built. So this is a challenge, because we are required to invest huge amounts of money either into fiber or mobile networks, whereas value extraction sometimes eludes us to the extent it should come to us, right? I think this is one of the big challenges. But specifically about Indonesia, I think it's a market of opportunity, to be honest. While the mobile market is hugely penetrated, at least on the fixed side, as I mentioned earlier, because of the low penetrations, rising income levels, huge population, economic growth, I think on the fixed side of the equation, there is a huge opportunity for growth instead of a challenge. The challenge, as we discussed earlier, is, okay, how do you take such a complex geography and start building out a network?
Yeah, and you mentioned about the challenges in terms of infrastructure, but what about the regulation itself from the Indonesian government? Is it supportive to the industry?
On the fixed side of the equation, yes. I don't see any regulatory hurdles per se, right? I mentioned we operate in a market which, from a business, socioeconomics, political, regulatory perspective, is pretty conducive for companies to launch something and become successful. So far, I think we are pretty happy with the state of affairs.
Okay, and then with the rising technology of 5G, it's not a fixed network. Do you think that a fixed network or fiber broadband still be relevant in the future years?
So the short answer is yes, because 5G is a combination of fiber as well as a form of radio network. But especially in Indonesia, I think there is still time, because we are still waiting for the regulator to chart out the policy framework for which spectrum, which bands will be available for 5G. And then typically what happens in markets is they conduct 5G auctions where operators and other players come and bid for the spectrum, and then you start deploying the network. So we are not even at the first stage yet in Indonesia.
Still many
So
years ahead.
There's still a few years to go.
Yeah.
It could accelerate, but if there are a few years to go, then till such time, what is the other technology of choice? And the way we see it, it is fixed broadband through fiber.
All right, and so what are the future plans for the products or feature development? Do you think that there should be any more features coming for XL? What do you think would be suitable for the market in the future?
So we started, as I mentioned, about 12 months ago, and the initial results are very encouraging. We are witnessing a significant interest and uptake from our consumers. We started with our set-top box and the content that I told you, but we plan to evolve into newer versions of the set-top box. We plan to strike newer partnerships with international and local content players. And then we plan to get into a more value-added services type of product suites. We are talking to a number of IoT providers. You may have heard of smart homes. So we are looking into those kind of products as well. So there's quite a long pipeline of products lined up. It's pretty
Any
exciting,
partnerships
yeah.
in the future?
We believe in a model of partnerships. In this business, you cannot be successful all by yourself, right? For content, we have to rely on partners. For hardware, we rely on partners. So yes, we will be striking a huge number of partnerships with not only content providers, but also equipment manufacturers, device manufacturers, so on and so forth.
What about acquisitions? Do you plan on doing acquisitions in a short period of time?
Look, in any market, growth is a function of your organic efforts or setting up partnerships or acquiring other companies. I think in every market, every player is looking at the potential of acquiring any other player at any given point in time. And I don't think Indonesia is any different. So from that perspective, I guess all the players are looking, how can they grow? I mean, is consolidation a way to grow? Then we cannot rule that out either.
What kind of technology are you looking for in acquisition?
If you mean XL Home, then we are, the way we look at things is we are technology agnostic, to be honest, right? Today, the technology of choice is fiber, which is the fastest technology available. Tomorrow, if something else comes up, then we will look at it. Or tomorrow, if there is a lot of spectrum available in 5G and we manage to get some, then we will use that as a technology of choice. So what we want, the way we look at our business is the ability to connect a household with high quality broadband. The underlying technology actually doesn't matter to the consumer.
Okay, last question. What about the target for 2020 or maybe 5 years from now? What is the target for XL Home?
5 years from now, we hope to have become a very strong number 2 player in this market. So that's our target. In 2020, we continue deploying our network. So end of last year, we had covered around 250,000 homes passed, as I mentioned. This year, we plan to actually double or triple that. That's our aspiration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abhijit, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Sekian wawancara kami dengan Abhijit Navalekar selaku Chief of Corporate Strategy and Business Development XL Axiata. CNBC Indonesia, Beyond Business.